What if I told you that the most powerful country in the world is quietly being challenged, not with weapons or armies, but with roads, ports, and a new kind of money? China is building something massive, and most people have no idea how far it has already spread across the globe. The United States dollar has ruled global trade for decades, but Beijing has a plan to change that forever. Through trillions of dollars in infrastructure investments and a digital currency revolution, China is constructing a financial empire that could reshape how the entire world does business. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how this strategy works and why some experts believe the dollar's dominance may be running out of time. Stay until the final part because the last piece of information reveals what could happen next and how it might affect you directly. For decades, the United States dollar has been the undisputed king of global finance. After World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's reserve currency. When that system collapsed in 1971, the petrodollar arrangement kept American currency at the center of oil trade. Every country needing energy had to hold dollars. This gave Washington extraordinary power over the global economy and financial markets worldwide. But China watched and learned from the sidelines. As its economy grew through the 1980s and 1990s, Beijing understood that true power required more than manufacturing strength. It required control over money itself. The leadership recognized that depending on the dollar meant depending on American goodwill. Any nation holding dollars was exposed to American sanctions, interest rate decisions, and political pressure. China began its long march toward currency independence slowly and carefully. The yuan, also called the renminbi, was tightly controlled by the government. Capital could not flow freely in or out of the country. This protected China from financial crises, but also limited the yuan's international appeal. Few countries wanted to hold a currency they could not easily convert or trade. The first major step came in 2009 when China launched pilot programs allowing some trade to be settled in yuan rather than dollars. Initially limited to Hong Kong and a few Southeast Asian neighbors, these programs tested whether the world would accept Chinese currency. The results encouraged Beijing to push further along this path toward currency internationalization. By 2015, China had signed bilateral currency swap agreements with over 30 countries across multiple continents. These agreements allowed direct exchange between yuan and local currencies without converting through dollars first. Countries from Argentina to the United Kingdom participated in these arrangements. Each agreement represented a small crack in the dollar's foundation. The most significant recognition came in 2016 when the International Monetary Fund added the yuan to its special drawing rights basket. This placed China's currency alongside the dollar, euro, pound, and yen as a global reserve asset. The decision acknowledged China's economic importance and gave central banks official reason to hold yuan reserves. It was a symbolic victory that carried real weight. Behind these public achievements, China was building infrastructure for a much larger vision. State-owned banks expanded across Asia and Africa. Chinese payment systems developed as alternatives to Western networks. Technology companies created digital platforms that could process transactions without touching American financial infrastructure. Every piece fit into a larger puzzle being assembled. The leadership in Beijing understood that changing global finance would take generations, not years. They were not seeking quick victories, but permanent transformation of the monetary order. Each agreement, each institution, each technology investment moved the world slightly closer to a future where the dollar shared power. The patience required was enormous, but so was the prize. By the mid-2010s, China was ready for the next phase of its ambitious strategy. The groundwork had been laid through years of careful preparation. What came next would be the largest infrastructure project in human history. The Belt and Road Initiative was about to reshape the global economy in ways few imagined possible. In 2013, President Xi Jinping announced what would become the defining project of Chinese foreign policy for the coming decades. The Belt and Road Initiative, originally called One Belt, One Road, proposed building infrastructure across Asia, Europe, Africa, and Latin America. Roads, railways, ports, power plants, and telecommunications networks would connect China to markets worldwide. The scale was absolutely unprecedented. Estimates suggested total investment could reach $1 trillion or more. The strategy worked on multiple levels simultaneously. Countries desperately needing infrastructure received Chinese loans and construction expertise. In return, they became tied to Chinese supply chains, Chinese equipment, and increasingly, Chinese currency. Many projects required repayment in yuan or accepted yuan for trade settlements. Each port and railway became another thread in a growing financial web. Sri Lanka offers a clear example of how this system operates in practice. The Hambantota Port project received heavy Chinese financing when Western lenders showed little interest. When Sri Lanka struggled to repay the loans, China took a 99-year lease on the port facility. Similar patterns emerged in Pakistan, Kenya, Zambia, and dozens of other nations. Infrastructure created dependency, and dependency created leverage. The numbers reveal the initiative's remarkable reach across the globe. By 2023, over 140 countries had signed Belt and Road Cooperation documents with China. Chinese companies had completed thousands of projects across developing regions. Railways now connect China to Europe through Central Asia. Ports dot coastlines from Greece to Brazil. Power plants operate from Bangladesh to Argentina. Alongside these physical investments, China accelerated development of digital financial infrastructure. The Digital Yuan, launched in pilot programs across major Chinese cities, represented the future of cross-border payments. Unlike decentralized cryptocurrencies, this central bank digital currency remained fully controlled by Beijing. It could enable instant international transactions without touching dollar-based systems like StubIFT. Testing expanded rapidly across regions and partner nations. By 2022, digital yuan transactions had reached billions of dollars in total value. Partnerships with Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates explored cross-border applications. The technology promised to make yuan transactions faster, cheaper, and completely independent of Western financial infrastructure. For countries worried about sanctions, this looked attractive. Currency swap agreements multiplied as Belt and Road expanded across continents. China signed deals with nations across every region, creating networks where trade could flow without dollar conversion. Russia, after facing Western sanctions, dramatically increased yuan usage in bilateral trade. Brazil explored settlement options that bypassed the dollar. Even Saudi Arabia discussed potential oil sales in yuan. The strategic logic was perfectly clear to observers. Every loan denominated in yuan, every project requiring Chinese equipment, every trade agreement settled in renminbi weakened dollar dominance slightly. None of these individual moves threatened American financial power directly. Together, however, they constructed an alternative system that countries could turn to when needed. China was not attacking the dollar openly. It was building an escape route for those who wanted one. The pace of change surprised many Western observers watching these developments unfold. What had seemed like distant possibilities suddenly looked much closer. The infrastructure was real. The currency agreements were signed. The digital systems were functioning. China's financial empire was no longer just a future project. It was already operating. Despite remarkable progress, China faces significant obstacles in challenging dollar dominance. The most fundamental problem is capital controls. Beijing restricts how money flows in and out of the country, protecting its financial system but limiting yuan appeal. International investors hesitate to hold a currency they cannot freely convert. Until China opens its capital account, the yuan cannot fully compete with the dollar. Transparency concerns create additional barriers to widespread yuan adoption. Foreign investors and governments often question the reliability of Chinese economic data. Political interference in markets, sudden regulatory changes, and limited legal protections worry those considering large yuan holdings. Trust takes decades to build, and China's system operates very differently from Western financial markets. Geopolitical tensions complicate the picture further. As relations between China and Western nations deteriorate, some countries face pressure to choose sides. Accepting Chinese infrastructure financing or holding yuan reserves can create political difficulties with the United States and allies. Nations caught between great powers must navigate carefully, sometimes limiting their willingness to embrace yuan-based systems. The debt trap narrative has also damaged Belt and Road's international reputation significantly. Critics point to countries struggling under Chinese loan burdens, forced to surrender strategic assets when payments fail. Sri Lanka's port, Zambia's power grid, and other examples feed fears that Chinese investment comes with hidden costs. Beijing disputes these characterizations, but the perception persists among many nations. Technical challenges remain significant as well. Building a global currency system requires more than political will. It demands sophisticated financial markets, liquid trading platforms, and reliable legal frameworks. China continues developing these capabilities, but the United States benefits from decades of institutional infrastructure. The dollar's network effects are powerful because everyone already uses dollars for trade. Expert opinions on timeline vary widely among analysts and researchers. Some believe China could establish a significant parallel financial system within 10 to 15 years. Others argue that fundamental reforms would be necessary for the yuan to truly challenge dollar dominance. The most likely outcome falls somewhere between complete success and total failure in this ambitious endeavor. What seems certain is that the global financial system is becoming more fragmented. Even if the dollar remains dominant, the yuan will likely play a much larger role. Regional currency blocks may emerge, with different systems serving different parts of the world. This multipolar financial future would reduce American leverage while creating new complexities for international trade worldwide. The lessons from China's strategy are profound for observers everywhere. Economic power follows infrastructure investment over generations, not years. Digital innovation can bypass traditional financial gatekeepers effectively. Patient diplomacy builds relationships that enable currency adoption over time. And perhaps most importantly, the world's reliance on any single currency is not permanent. For viewers watching global finance unfold, the message is clear. The coming decades will likely see continued competition between dollar-based and yuan-based systems. Your investments, your business relationships, and even your government's foreign policy will be shaped by this quiet financial war. Understanding these dynamics now prepares you for a future already arriving. The question is not whether the global monetary system will change, but how dramatically and how soon. Thank you for watching this analysis. Subscribe to our channel for more breakdowns of the forces reshaping our financial world and the future of global economics.